The center is dedicated to the interdisciplinary study of religion, ethics, and public life. And one of the global challenges that we focus on is the question of interreligious dialogue. And we firmly believe that we need to deeply examine matters of faith and ethics in order to promote open engagement of different religious and cultural traditions with the wider world in the service of peace. So this event, the President's Challenge, fits in absolutely perfectly with the mission and the ethos of the Berkley Center, and especially so at Georgetown. Georgetown is the country's oldest Catholic and Jesuit university, founded in 1789, and it has an amazing tradition of interreligious work that is tied to the Jesuit tradition. It was the first university to have a Muslim chaplain and also a rabbi. So we have a very illustrious history of interfaith work here. So as part of that, the President's Challenge fits in very well, and what we have done over the past 2 years is really gathered together a community of faculty, staff, and students asking, what is it about my personal faith that motivates me to serve, to help my fellow man? This is something that motivates all of us in different faith traditions, also from a perspective of ethics, of moral values. It's not just about faith as well. And through that work, we have developed a great set of programs over the past 2 years. Just to show you a little bit, we have this website here, Interfaith Service at Georgetown, which lists different events. We have an interview series that students are doing. Trish Jane, she's in the room with us here today. She's working on this project at the Berkley Center. She interviewed our speaker, Jack Gordon, this morning, and you'll see we have different interviews with faith and service leaders on campus and in the community here. For example, Chase Kimball is here with us today. So these are all very interesting. I would encourage you to check them out. We also have a blog which chronicles the work that students, faculty, staff, and community members are doing in terms of faith and service here in the community. So this is a great resource for all of you who are interested in this work. I think this is just such an exciting time to gather together as a community to talk about this work. We at Georgetown have many of the leaders who are really engaged in the social movement of the day. Because if you think about it, leaders who led movements for change, be that Martin Luther King, be it Gandhi, be it Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, were working from their faith to fight for civil rights, to fight for human rights, to fight for improving the world. Just today I got a note from Rabbi Rachel Gardner, Georgetown's rabbi, who said she couldn't be here today because she's at an interfaith clergy gun control vigil on the Hill. So it's a perfect example of someone using their faith to push for social action. Some of the other campus leaders who are here in the room today are also closely involved in this. I know Sana Saeed from the Interfaith Council, not Interfaith Council, Interfaith Youth Action Group. Yep. She was very active downtown at the Supreme Court in the fight to support marriage equality, so I was following her tweets about that. And if you follow Father Kevin O'Brien, the head of campus mission and ministry here at Georgetown, on Facebook, you can see him posting pictures of Georgetown students marching downtown yesterday to support immigration reform. So these are all very interesting examples. Another concrete one, if we have time later, I'll show you a video. I forgot to mention we have great media resources over here as well. We have a student who, because of his personal faith, wanted to bring the gift of reading, of literacy, to all underserved students in the DC community. He believed that his faith compelled him to bring knowledge to others. So he started something called Bring on the Books, and it's now in its second year. He just let me know he's collected over 4,000 books, and it's an interfaith, intercultural, inter-Georgetown community public-private partnership. So 4,000 books is a huge achievement. We're very excited about that. And you know, in thinking about all this work, a particular quote had stood out to me by a poet that I love called Rumi, who is sort of an interfaith guru for many of us. He said, "Start a huge, foolish project like Noah." And I love that, because a lot of times when you want to change the world, you think, I can't do this, it's too much, who will help me, who will support me? But if you just, you know, maybe so Hale said this, how can I collect 4,000 books? But he just did it. He went out, he used his networks, he used his peers and his mentors, and he did it. And so this room here is a room of both mentors and peers for those of us who are interested in doing interfaith work. We need this community. We need young people to start this work, become passionate in this work, and continue it into the next generation and really improve the world for peace. So that's just a little bit of my thoughts on why this is so important and why I'm so excited about this work. We're really creating a movement that brings diversity, spirituality, and social action together in a very real and concrete way. So to introduce our speaker as someone who really embodies all these values and all this work, Jack Gordon. Jack is a professional media producer and photographer who has created media projects in support of community development programs both in the U.S. and abroad. He comes from a family with Jewish, Christian, and Baha'i relatives, and he has a deeply personal understanding of the importance of building positive interfaith relationships. He currently serves on the board of the Interfaith Conference in Metropolitan Washington as a representative for the Baha'i community. Merging his production expertise with his dedication to interfaith activism, Gordon launched Faith in Action DC, a multimedia project that documents and celebrates the social justice and community service work of diverse people of faith in the DC area. Faith in Action DC is an amazing project. You can follow it on Twitter, on Facebook. They just had a major gathering called the DC Young Adult Faith Leaders Interfaith Summit, which brought together many of the folks in this room. So we're going to hear from Jack. He's going to speak about his work, how to get involved, and then we're also going to hear from several other leaders in the room. We're having Reverend Joi Orr of Faith for Change. I don't know if she's here yet. She was stuck in traffic, but she'll be here. Rebecca Ennen is here of Jews United for Justice, right there. Gretchen, Rydin, and Chase Kimball of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I know Chase is here. I don't know if Gretchen's here yet. Oh, hi, Gretchen. And Sana Saeed of Interfaith Alliance is here. So these are leaders who are actively doing this work on the ground. We also have a great group of students. Besides Trishla, we have Pallavi from the Hindu Students Association, Gabi from the Jewish Students Association, Nadia from the Muslim Students Association, who can share about work on campus. So after Jack speaks, we really want to open this up and have a conversation about the work everyone is doing, best practices, challenges, how we can unite, how we can serve our community, and how we can move this work forward together. So thank you so much, and I will invite Jack up to the podium to start the conversation. Thank you.
Great. So praise God, and thanks all of you for being here today. This is really a great invitation. I see Georgetown as such a wonderful partner in so many interfaith opportunities, and the Berkley Center specifically. It's been wonderful to be continuing to build this relationship over the last couple of years. I had one particular very important question I wanted to clarify since we're here at Georgetown, and I'm hoping you can help me answer it. What is a Hoya? I don't know if it's a type of bulldog or something, but I was hoping somebody here might be able to tell me. I'm serious, I really don't know, and I'd like to know. The answer is yes? What is a Hoya? So it's an existential bulldog. Okay, all right, good. See, I didn't grow up following sports. I read comic books in high school. And I was really more interested in like the team mascots and the logos and stuff than the actual sports team. So I've always been confused about that. I live over in Brookland, and CUA's got the Cardinals, which is a very cute name. And I wasn't sure if there was some sort of Catholic tie-in with Bulldogs or something like that. Jumpin' Jesuits or something. It'd be some sort of thing. So I'm very excited to be here. I think that these type of conversations and struggling with these issues of faith and so forth while we're in college is really one of those critical things that we're dealing with as undergraduates. I'm reflecting back on now this month is about 10 years. It's been about 10 years since I think I was in probably the same chair as a lot of you as an undergrad. And getting sort of activated both in terms of my commitments to social justice and also what does it mean in terms of my faith journey. So I was just also curious, how many are actually students here? Who, undergraduate, graduate? Okay. How many are students somewhere in life? Yeah? Okay, great, awesome. Cool. So the majority of us, wonderful. So I thought, just thinking about my journey as somebody who, like I said, has wrestled with a lot of these questions of justice and bring that into alignment with my faith calling. I thought I would share a little bit about my story and where I am coming from. Melody set it up very nicely. So I come from an interfaith family. My father's side of the family is Jewish. My mother's side of the family is predominantly Christian of various backgrounds. I have some relatives as well that are Baha'i. So growing up, I had this sort of mix and interplay in my family, and it wasn't necessarily a mix that worked peacefully. I was very militant about my Judaism, my Jewish identity growing up, and had a very rough time with the Christian tradition because of the stories that I heard about, how people who had professed a belief in Jesus Christ had treated Jews over the centuries. And so I held that very close and was quite prejudiced in thinking that anything that came from Jesus was corrupt and phony. And it was really in college that I started to dismantle those things. When I was coming to college, basically my whole world was getting turned upside down. I don't know if it's the same for a lot of you, but college was the first time that I was living away from my family for an extended period of time. I was one of those guys that basically went to school after living in the same suburban town for nearly my entire life. Read basically one Frantz Fanon paper and came back by Thanksgiving time and was talking about how our entire town is based on institutionalized racism, and my high school is a tool of the oppression, and stop perpetuating gender binaries, grandma, and stuff like that. So I think that's part of the experience also, is like basically getting exposed to all these things and getting kind of angry about things conceptions that you had of the world, and then basically over time, as you sort of parse the nuances of them, like a lot of people really worked hard to build the town that I lived in, or my little sister really wants to go to prom, or my grandma raised a bunch of kids when her parents arrived here, coming from a shtetl in Eastern Europe, these sort of things that there is a nuance and sort of a delicacy, a delicate nature to these issues. And in the college environment, we're really wrestling with them. So we may find times where all of a sudden our world's been exploded and we don't know who we are anymore, and we're trying to piece it back together again. And that has to do a lot with the social issues that we're wrestling with in our country and our world, and it has also a lot to do with our personal faith journeys a lot of times. So when I was in about my I think it was the beginning of my third year of school, as I mentioned, I'm coming from a very strong Jewish identity, had a bar mitzvah, was in synagogue every week, was in Hebrew school every week growing up, and then I had a girlfriend in my first year of high school who said, well, when I have kids, Christmas is a big part of what we're going to do, and that's it, and I thought, well, if I want to be with this lady, I'm not sure how I'm going to deal with that. So love also helps, I think, take these things apart and put them back together again. I think that was an important element of it. And then at the same time, the arts, I think, are a big part of it as well. I always loved gospel music at the same time. I'm not sure why, but I think it was something that at the very core just sort of spoke to me on a level that I couldn't really understand. And I was at this gospel concert, and the band leader said, okay, everybody, it was in a secular venue, right? So everybody, it's going to be a call and response, and when I say, who do you love, you're going to say Jesus. And I was standing there, and I was totally like shocked. And this guy, he was totally ready for it, right? He knew this crowd just by looking at us. And then he said, you can basically think about whatever it is that you love. I love Jesus, and this is I'm calling that name is basically the embodiment of the things that I love in the world. And whatever it is that you love, that's fine. But we're in this moment, we're going to be using that name, Jesus, to name that thing. And it was like this light bulb went on in my head. It wasn't a complete understanding of Christian theology, and it didn't sort of like put to rest all the things that I thought about Christian history and all that sort of thing. But I thought, I can get behind that. There's this idea of God being this embodiment of love, and there are all these different names for God, and some people say God or Adonai or Jesus or Allah. There are many different conceptions for it, whatever the case is. And I was thinking, and it sort of opened me up, and as I was thinking on the way home about the organizing work that I was doing on campus around, in this case it was around labor issues. We had a labor fight on campus. I was thinking, if I look at this example of the life of Jesus, Jesus is just like a really good community organizer. And I can get behind that idea. Jesus as community organizer, I'm on it. That's fine. I can work with that concept. So that sort of opened me up a little bit more. And I started talking then to my Baha'i relatives as well, and asking them a little bit about, what is this Baha'i faith, and what are the tenets of it. My grandmother, who came to the Baha'i faith a little bit later in life as an adult, she sat me down, she gave me some books. I talked to some cousins of mine. They talked to me a little bit more. Actually, it was just in Dunbarton Oaks over here that I had my first real conversation about these things. And I thought, okay, the embodiment of this faith is really, it's something that I can see where I fit in with this, and I can see where this vision is can help me, help as a guiding force in my life. There was one quote in particular that Baha'u'llah, the prophet of the Baha'i faith, said that I read very early on that touched me very deeply. I'm paraphrasing, but basically he says, the best beloved in God's sight is justice. That's the thing that we always have to work for. That in order to get to peace, and really from the Baha'i perspective, in order to really get to love, you first have to start with justice. Because how can we expect peace if we don't have a feeling of love towards one another? And how can people who are in positions of vulnerability, who are being marginalized, who are being oppressed, love those other people, or those people who are in positions of power show that they actually love those who are vulnerable, if they don't act with justice, if there isn't a justice part of this equation? So that was something that I really held fast to early on. And so it was during college that I actually joined the Baha'i community. I now consider myself a Baha'i in terms of my religious practice. My Jewish heritage is critically important to me. It's something that I feel is a dynamic relationship. I feel like it's something that I work on and with all the time. And I'm very happy that through this journey that there's been a feeling of peace that I've also been able to create with my interaction with Christianity, with my Christian family members, and with those Christians that I interact with. That I can see the love that's at the core of the motivation that's coming from them, and the good things that the teachings of Jesus are bringing to their work for justice, and then in partnering alongside them. So I think that the message that I wanted to to also just sort of impart to all of you that are undergrads, that are just sort of starting to think about, what the next steps are once you leave this this very sacred and somewhat fragile environment of college, that you'll be stepping beyond these gates at some point very soon and into a world, whether it's a professional world, maybe you'll be doing some sort of volunteer work overseas or whatever the case is, that change, that dynamism in terms of your perspective of things and your surroundings is going to be with you at all times. That in college, your life is being really torn apart. You're being made to think about things in a new way. And as soon as you start to put those things together again, there'll be something that comes into the scenario and rips it all apart again. And I wanted to leave you with a quote that from perhaps a somewhat unlikely place. I said, earlier that I grew up, I really like science fiction and comic books, right? And personally, I think, religion and superheroes actually go together really well. Because if you really like reading imaginary stories about people with funny names and superpowers saving the world, then you'll really like comic books. And that was a joke from my secular friends in the audience, by the way. So there's this, I don't know if any of you read Octavia Butler's work. Anybody by Octavia Butler, right? Okay, so she has this novel. She's a science fiction novelist. And she has this book called Parable of the Sower. And there's this line in there it's basically like the theme around which this whole novel is based. And it says, God is change. And my interpretation of that is basically that the universe is always changing, that our place in the universe is always changing, right? And that guiding force is always, in a certain sense, it's always testing us. That God is everywhere, but omnipresent does not mean stagnant. Yeah? And the thing that's important is then our reaction to those changes. How we react as the world around us changes, right? We're in our home, hopefully the safety of a loving family. We're separated from that family to come to college, put in a new city, a new environment, with new ideas and new people that are around us. That community is broken apart, and then we're tested by a new environment. We graduate, we feel good about hopefully what we've accomplished in school, and then it's scary, right? All of a sudden we're out on our own and we have to support ourselves with a new job, pay the bills perhaps for the first time, and then maybe we'll get to a place hopefully where things are starting to come together with that, but in this environment, oftentimes not. We may have a lot of burdens, real material burdens like debt and unemployment or what have you, moving back to your parents' house, whatever the case is. All of these things are changes that God or the universe, whatever it is that you want to describe it as, is putting us in, placing us in. And what is the important thing? The important thing is how we react. And I would argue that the thing that's going to be constant is that spirit of service, that spirit of working for social justice, regardless of the context that you're in, that if you bring that spirit with you, then you will be able to overcome these circumstances, ride that out, and have a positive impact in your community. And I would challenge you that in whatever context you're in, highs and lows alike, there will be an opportunity to find, you'll have the opportunity to look for an opportunity to be of service to somebody, right? I think about when I was in my early 20s, I just graduated from school. I was on fire. I was going to change the world. Everything is, I was thinking big about things, right? And I was, independent. I'm a young guy. I'm in good health. And so I have that capacity, you know, basically to just go out and run around and do whatever I want. And now, you know, I think about like 10 years later, I'm married, I have a child, right? And those things make it to be so that that type of work has to be a little bit quieter, has to be a bit more family focused, right? But there are always these opportunities to be of service. You may be very well off, you may be very deep in debt. You can always find some opportunity to serve with people and serve others. So that really, I think, is the core of the thought that I'd like to present to you. Is, you know, whether you're a freshman or a sophomore moving into your college work, whether you're a senior about to graduate, that as you're presented with these changes in your environment, that you look for the opportunities to serve, and certainly when it comes to an interfaith component, you look for partners, and be bold in taking the opportunity to join with people of different backgrounds, of backgrounds that you may not be familiar with. So here in DC, one of the things that I've been excited about is gathering folks in my peer group to engage in this type of service conversation. It's something that a lot of us do naturally, especially at an institution like Georgetown. You have a very diverse community, both ethnically and religiously, and you know, geographically where people are from and so forth. But we also have to think systematically about how it is that we're coming together and forming alliances and advocating for one another in times of need. And so here in the DC area, as an extension, we're blessed with that type of diversity as well. And so over the last couple of years, as I've been meeting people, you know, I've been trying to create intentional opportunities to bring folks who are working maybe in parallel in different faith communities, or might be able to complement one another's work because of their areas of expertise. So, you know, Melody invited me to come and speak to you all today with the added bonus of bringing some of these young leaders from these different faith communities that I've had an opportunity to work alongside. And so some of them are here, and Melody was very good to introduce them. And I thought that maybe what we could do is we could sort of go around and just present a little bit about what our faith work is from our organization or our faith community, and you know, some of the areas of focus, the issues that we're working on, and maybe how interfaith connectivity has helped strengthen that. Yeah. Okay. So why don't we start with Gretchen and Chase? You guys you're a composite. You're like power twins over here.
Chase and I, we are from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is sometimes considered LDS or Mormon. So we kind of like have three names. So just to clarify, we represent sort of the 18 to 30 or so young adults who live in the DC and some of the Metro Maryland area. And we have a congregation of about 250 or so young adults who are there every Sunday. We have lots of other activities throughout the week that we do on an organizing basis. I personally, it's a lay ministry in our faith, which means our clergy don't get paid, and our Sunday school teachers and our administrators, no one gets paid. So everybody who's a member of the faith kind of has a job. And so we have a real sense of community as a result of that. So one of my jobs is I do our community outreach and our service projects. So I have a small committee of maybe 10 people or so. It's made up of students, it's made up of young professionals, it's made up of interns who are out here just for the summer or for a semester. So we have a lot of transients, but I have made it clear to our committee and with the leadership that people cycling through, we want to bring the most meaningful service experiences possible, with the idea that they're not going to stay in the DC area for long, but that they are going to go back to their communities wherever they came from, whether it's New York or California or Europe or Southeast Asia, wherever they're cycling through, that they will take an experience here and the way that they connect to DC and with some of our projects, and they'll take that back with them. And then they'll lead more community service-driven projects. So that's kind of my goal. The areas we focused on, kind of taking that call out of Matthew, you know, to clothe the naked and feed the hungry and visit the sick. So using that as sort of a call, we've worked with nursing homes and kind of have a regular ongoing monthly activity with a nursing home across the street from our place of worship. We work with a women's homeless shelter, providing just kind of monthly dinners, and very, very small scale still. And then we also do other variety of projects working with other constituencies. So we've worked with some mentoring organizations, highlighting, you know, kids in the foster system, kind of put on like a fun Olympics for them. Or we'll do a lot of cleanup projects. A really fun one, and if any of you are looking for cool ways to volunteer, the Anacostia River, really dirty, yes. But the various park services, they will give you canoes for free and equipment, and you get to canoe, and the only segue thing is you pick up trash as you canoe in the river, and you just dump it inside your canoe as you go. So it's really fun. You go up and down the river. That's been kind of a fun opportunity. And we just do a little, kind of monthly or every other month big projects like that. So I try to vary the scope, and then we just have our own internal community service projects that we do within the church, within our own ward members. For example, there's something called our Bishop Storehouse, and it's basically like an internal grocery store that members throughout the entire DC metro area have access to. It's part of our welfare program, so it's sort of like an internal assistance programs for members who are in need, and that's not just young people, that's families, that's everybody who's in the area. And so the various churches in this area who are part of the Mormon faith, they take assignments in this sort of grocery store, if you will, and they stock items, and then families who are in need, they go through their bishops, which in this case would be like your parish or your help me out if I'm blanking here, and then they can get food that way. So we have some internal things like that. It's been really fun, really rewarding experience. More recently, we're trying to get into the interfaith exchange. Last year we had some very political Mormon stuff going on in the news, and now that is done, and it gives us a little bit more freedom to engage in activities like this without other people thinking we have an agenda. So we had to be a little careful, but now we're really excited to be in the game and really get to showcase what our faith is all about and how excited we are to partner with the other faiths and learn more and more about you. What we're trying to do with our congregation, at least with the young adults, and then pass it up, scale it up in some of the other areas, is just really have a just cultural exchange, understand what your faith is about. And some of us who've been out of college for a while, like, it's hard because you get cycled into your own paradigm. But we want to visit your churches. We want to understand your doctrine. We want to look for similarities because there's a lot between, and not just of Christian to Christian faith like we are, but to, you know, the Baha'is, for example, there's a lot of commonalities, and it's exciting to see that. In the Muslim community, there's a lot of parallels between Mormons and Muslims. So it's cool to see that, and we want to show other people that, and we just want to clear up misunderstandings about our own faith as well. So that's kind of where we stand right now. We're just kind of getting our foot in the door and meeting as many people as we can, and are just really excited to be a part of the game. So thank you for having us, and I guess I'll turn it over to my colleague, Chase.
Thanks, Gretchen. Gretchen already said a lot. So maybe I'll just summarize what she said in my own words and add and affirm her points. So Mormons are really good at helping themselves, and I think they have a very good reputation for that. They're very industrious and have very tight-knit communities that support one another in, I think, really remarkable ways that that I really appreciate as a member of that community. And this is a really exciting time, I think, in our community locally in the DC area, but I think you'll also notice with the LDS Church across the world that there's an increasingly greater focus on engaging with other people and making friendships across religious boundaries and other types of cultural boundaries, and just forming partnerships and working together to serve in the community and to just make our society a better place. And like Gretchen said, we're excited to sort of get in the game here in DC, and I think Jack's invitation to this Young Leaders Summit just a few months ago, and a lot of other opportunities we've been seeking out have been about forming friendships and relationships, about learning from one another, serving together, and then just becoming friends. So that's just a summary of where we are, and it's great to be here.
Good afternoon. Everybody. Thank you, Melody, for the invitation. My name is Reverend Joi Orr, and Jack, thank you as well for the invitation, of course. I won't be before you very long, but I want to first tell you a little bit about what I do with my organization, and then also put an idea that I've been really trying to think through in regards to interfaith service and community building. So first, I'm the Chief Program Officer for an organization called Faith Leaders for Community Change, in short, Faith for Change. And what we do is we partner churches with their local community schools to make sure that no child is left behind. And what that means is that we partner with Title I schools and public schools that are having a lot of issues resource-wise, and we meet the needs of those schools with the resources of the churches in their neighborhoods. We're about 2 years old now. I've been on board for a little less than 2 years. And so I've had the opportunity and the grand challenge of building a nonprofit from the ground up. It's been extremely rewarding and challenging, that's the key word. But it's really good work, and I'm really excited about it. And so I knew that when I came on board originally that I wanted the organization to grow into a place of interfaith community. When we started out, the founder, Reverend Ramal Toon, and I pulled a lot from the networks that we had already began building in our careers, which with the organizations we were working with prior to were mostly African American churches. And when we look at the issue of public education and public education as being under attack right now, a lot of the communities that are affected are African American and Latino communities coming from low socioeconomic standing. But one of the things that I've been thinking through is how do we partner with churches and houses of worship other than Christian religions that are interested in helping and saving and safeguarding public education for all. So what is the role of the interfaith community in public education is one of the things that I'm really trying to think through right now. In my previous work with People for the American Way, I have already thought through what it looks like legislatively wise. So how do we partner with different communities to bring them out to rallies, to have sign-on letters, to engage their members on Sunday mornings or Saturdays about public education and the issues that are on the table. But now I'm trying to think through what does that look like service-wise? What does that look like having, Gretchen, for example, in her community come to a school and, partner with some service activity, or having tutors that are houses of worship that are outside of the community. So it's a tension because our organization is trying to engage the churches and houses of worship that are already located in the community, but I think at some point we're going to have to expand from that. I don't have the answers. That's why I'm here, to facilitate the dialogue and to hopefully move closer to what that looks like in the future. How do we partner with issues that seemingly affect one community, but really affects all of us? I think it's almost played out or cliche now to say that, a threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, but it's true, and that's why we hear it so often when we talk about these issues. I talk kind of fast, sorry. But yeah, that's really what's on my mind this afternoon, and I hope that we could somehow talk about in our discussion.
Hi. So my name is Sana Saeed. I'm with the Interfaith Alliance, and I work on the I have been working on the Interfaith Alliance national youth program called LEAD, which stands for Leadership, Education, Advancing Democracy and Diversity. And what we do is we organize youth leadership trainings across the country in different states, where we do 3-day trainings focused around the history of the First Amendment, religious freedom in the U.S. and how it has evolved from up to today. And we aim to give students space to have conversations about their spiritual faith journeys, and also together talk about how they can develop leadership skills to do interfaith organizing in their schools and in their faith-based communities. The trainings also focus on teaching them conflict resolution skills. We've had a lot of students in the past where they wanted to learn more about how to address religious discrimination happening in schools. So we have recently adapted the curriculum to include conflict resolution and bullying components, so that they have skills to be more than either a bystander or a victim when it comes to bullying in schools based on religion. So that's what we've been doing and evolving over the last year at the Interfaith Alliance. Before that, I used to work for the Unitarian Universalist Church of Arlington, Virginia, where I'm also a member. I was the director of youth ministry, and I did a lot of organizing around high school youth. And that was a really unique experience because I grew up Muslim. I have a Muslim heritage. And so the one question that people always asked me was, what is a Muslim doing working at a church? And it was a completely valid question. But I felt like at the time that I had applied, I was looking for I don't want to say necessarily a challenge, but a different spiritual experience in my life to kind of open my eyes a little bit more about a different community. And, if you ever read Diane Eck's work on pluralism, she kind of lays out how you have to go beyond just tolerance and agreeing at the table with everyone about ideas, but action and putting yourself in place with different faith communities and working with them, and to gain a kind of appreciation for diversity. And I feel like that was what my experience with the Unitarian Universalist Church came out to be. I worked with them for 3 years, and our youth group had about 70 high school kids, and it still does. It's a pretty large youth group compared to other UU churches, which have really smaller sizes. And I think the most notable year for me was my last year of working there. I'm still there as a youth group advisor, where the youth kind of mobilized around the issue of immigration. The overall Unitarian Universalist Association decided to do a general assembly in Phoenix, Arizona, where they did a lot of advocacy work around immigration and the immigration laws that are taking place in Phoenix. And so the youth had mobilized around this issue and raised $10,000 from year-long fundraisers to pay for their plane tickets and pay for housing, lodging, food, and all of that stuff, to fly to Phoenix and be present in learning about what's going on with immigration in the U.S., but also partnering up and meeting with partners on the ground. One of the things they did was, I don't know if you know, in Phoenix they've banned ethnic studies. So people have started creating underground libraries where they take book donations, and youth in the community can come and learn about Latino history and other ethnic cultures that they might be interested in. So some of our youth had taken books to donate to that, and we went and celebrated an opening of an underground library. So that kind of stuff really was eye-opening for them. They also we have a partner church in Guatemala, and they have high school students there that in Guatemala, I think it's about, they pay about $750 a year to go to high school. So one of the things that the youth group does at UUCA is raise money to send one high schooler to school for a year. And does a lot of advocacy and talks and lectures and stuff like that to get to raise awareness of the issues. So my experience obviously has been a lot around youth organizing, interfaith youth organizing. I also worked with the Interfaith Youth Action Group, and that's kind of how I met Melody. We did a lot of leadership workshops here at the Berkley Center over a course of a year. That was a year-long leadership program where we tied in monthly workshops where we connected youth with professionals in the interfaith field or organizations in the US that are doing great things with interfaith and service. And so they would get that training, but also they were responsible for doing a service project every month. And so they were able to partner up with these different organizations that do some type of service project. And one of the big ones they did was working with Miriam's Kitchen in DC, doing the Walk for the Homeless and raising more awareness about poverty and homelessness in DC. So those two different youth groups were really great experiences in terms of youth engagement, but also kind of eye-opening because they were two different types of I don't want to say classes, but like working with youth in the Arlington community, I worked with a more privileged set of youth, and in DC it was more urban youth that didn't come from a privileged background. So it was really great to see both groups and how they engaged in interfaith dialogue.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Ennen, and there's people on this side of the table. That's great. So I always like hearing Jack speak so much because he's great, and you should all have the blessing of getting to like hang out with him and drink a coffee or whatever. But I also like when Jack warms everybody up to the idea of like Jews who come from different kinds of backgrounds. I'm also from a mixed family, mixed heritage. I'm Irish Catholic and Eastern European Jewish. And also, I really love science fiction, so we're going to have to talk about that sometime. And I think also I locate in science fiction something that I also find in my work for justice and in my religious life and my faith, which is that I have a deep yearning for the world to be better than the way things are. And science fiction can be kind of an escape, but also kind of gives a window into possibilities. And some of my favorite writers are people who took an idea of a possibility about how the future could be or how the past could have been or a different world and ran with it. And I have many books that I could quote to you about that. But I also, as I said, I grew up in two different households. My parents split up when I was young, and in my own journey decided to be a religious Jew when I was around 11. And there's lots more to be said about that, but it's something that I continue to carry with me, that I have a Catholic heritage, and that the Catholic commitment to service and to justice is very strong in my family and is a big part of who I am as well. And also, people may know or not know, but Judaism is complicated. It's a religion, but it's also a series of different ethnic cultures, and that's something that's can just get complicated in the Jewish world, and also sometimes makes it hard to speak about faith and service, or my culture and service, or what's the kind of particular Jewish ethnicity that I'm from. I'm an Ashkenazi Jew, that's like Eastern European, and I'm white, which not all Ashkenazi Jews are, and not all Jews of color are Mizrahi or Sephardi or from whatever different Jewish tradition. So it's just, ask a Jew. You can get a lot of information about this if you want to learn. But I want to just go back to this feeling that for me, the notion that the way the world is just not what it could be, and it's not what it's meant to be, and that's a religious impulse for me. And that my religious community is, and this may be different for different people, but for me, Judaism is a deeply emotional religion, and many of our holidays are really built around like a primary emotion that you're going to feel at that holiday. Liberation, joy, grieving. We have a holiday for grieving, and it's not Yom Kippur. Needless, you might not know, but Yom Kippur is also kind of about getting free in a way. We just celebrated Passover, which is the commemoration of our liberation, which is a very primary story for many Jews and many social justice Jews that I'm close with. But for me, religious community is a place that I go to kind of express and experience these big emotions. Daily life can just be very numbing and leave you in a rut, or just getting and spending and making a life in the world can lead to a feeling of complacency or just acceptance. And in a religious community, we can experience the deep grief that comes from looking at the world, and the joy that also comes from looking at all that is good in the world before us, and really start hoping and dreaming and joining together with other people to see the divine in each other and to see what's really possible. And it's also just nice to have this whole incredible history and vocabulary of people to look back to, and especially as a Jew, there's an incredible religious history of that, going to the Exodus and to the prophets and their call for justice, but also to very secular Jews who are in our history, Jews at the forefront of the labor movement and the civil rights movement, and really in solidarity with people across all kinds of backgrounds. So one of the things that, so now I want to say a little bit about the work that I do. I work at Jews United for Justice, which is a local organization here in DC. We have a tiny staff, and we mobilize the Jewish community to work on local issues of racial and economic justice. And that includes things like immigrants' rights. So a ton of us were out at the out at the Capitol yesterday. Workers' rights. We're working on a campaign now to make sure that everybody in DC can take a paid sick day when they get sick. Because for a lot of people, if you have to choose between going to work sick and not being able to pay your bills, you're going to go to work sick. But one of the groups that is most affected by the lack of paid sick days here is restaurant workers. People who work in restaurants and handle our food don't have the right to take a day off when they're sick. And that's a public health issue, but it's also a justice issue. There's no reason that in a society as wealthy as ours, and in the restaurant industry in particular, which is fast growing and volatile, many restaurants close, but many restaurants profit hugely, that they can't afford for people to be able to get paid and be able to pay their bills. And we also work on things, one of the places that Jews United for Justice tries to locate our work is, where can we, as a largely white and largely affluent community, use what we have to really stand in solidarity with people who don't have those privileges and haven't, communities that haven't had the Jewish story of success in America. And looking back at my own family, my grandparents were illiterate immigrants, and my mother went to college, and I went to college, and have really landed in a very middle-class place. But that's not the story for many people, whether it's recent immigrants or other ethnic communities that didn't have the doors opened for them and didn't have those possibilities. So 2 years ago, we worked on a campaign to raise taxes in DC on wealthy people. And that was before Occupy happened. That was before all of this budget stuff federally. And it was tremendously meaningful to me to sit in a room full of 70 Jews mostly, with a DC council member and say, we want you to raise our taxes. We've done well in this city. We can afford to pay more taxes. This is a city with shocking and disgusting inequality. It's totally unacceptable that you would, refuse an offer of $400 a year more for people who are earning over $400,000 a year. So do it, make it happen. And the council member was kind of shocked, because it's not often that you sit down with a bunch of your constituents and they say, we'd really like you to raise our taxes. But it worked. And that's the kind of thing that, for me, is tremendously meaningful and gladdening, and I give praise to the Most Holy for making that possible in whatever way that could possibly work out. But I think what I want to say to the people who are here today, I thought there were going to be more students, so I had a more hard-charging thing about how everyone needs to become an activist. But I can still say that. Great. You should all become activists. And here's what I want to say about service. The topic that was stated today was service, and I don't want to rain on anybody's project or program parade that they have already in their heart. But I think that there's, for me, a difference between meeting a human need with generosity, love, with all of the resources that it takes to meet an existing need, and the work that it takes to actually transform society into something where there really is a more just way that we divide our resources and the way that we support each other. And it's not that service where you're meeting an individual need in a kind of one-on-one way isn't valuable. It's tremendously valuable. But I think we also need to make space in our lives for how are we making the change that will lead to that person not having that need in the future, or being able to meet the need without necessarily relying kind of on the kindness of strangers. And there are people, of course, there's always going to be people in the world who do need generosity and love and connection from others for all kinds of reasons. There are many people vulnerable in our society who, no matter what kind of economic justice reforms or income, wealth redistribution we could possibly do, are still going to need for us to generously care for each other. But there's a lot that we could do to change our society so that people who don't have resources now get them, and that they don't need to wait or rely on others who have them to kind of generously hand them over when we feel like it. And everyone who's here in this room is, a person of tremendous privilege, myself included. And I know you all must come from very different backgrounds, but there is so much that we could do. Living here in Washington, D.C., I moved here 2 years ago, not to work or to do anything in particular, actually, and to be with my partner. And it was amazing. I felt like I had moved to the belly of the beast in terms of like the center of world power, domination, capitalism, all of these things. And it's a place where it's very easy to feel numb to that. And especially if you're interested in a job in public service or in government or those kinds of things, it's very easy to accept like that the current power structure is kind of like okay and we can tinker with it a little bit. But I'll just end by saying that as a person of faith, I feel called that it's not just. What we have now is not just, and God calls on us to change that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all of you, for those comments. I think that's a great place to start a discussion. Do you have anything to add?
Well, I guess just as I think what Rebecca said is sort of something that I'm always thinking about and wrestling with. To think about, particularly, again, I was sort of orienting it towards our student participants. Thinking about ways that we can spend our time, whether within the context of a faith community or just as individuals, working on perhaps individual projects that serve a particular need, like the student you referenced to was helping gather books for those who need books, and working on some of the larger campaign type approaches, like what JUFJ is doing locally. Certainly in DC, we have the opportunity to do any and all of those things. And if anything, it's overwhelming, or it can be overwhelming, thinking about how we're going to divide our time, because we're being pulled in all these different directions. We have a if we have a job, we have probably a very demanding professional schedule, as a lot of people do in the DC area. If we're part of a faith community, we probably have some level of commitment if we're taking that community life seriously. Certainly if we have a family here, we have a commitment to family. If we have a family elsewhere, there's always the responsibility to be in touch with that family and maybe travel to see them, And so, what time is left over to just give of oneself in an additional way aside from that, right? So we have to be selective. I've come to the opinion over the years that we should be mindful that we should always be in a place where we're educating ourselves as much as we can you know, and being aware and in touch with our community and learning, always learning. You know, maybe it's not with the same intensity that we're doing in an undergraduate course, but we have that spirit of learning. We should also be forgiving of ourselves, you know, and cut ourselves some slack. That we are just one individual, and we have certain capacity thresholds, you know, and it's okay to take a break sometimes and to step back and to reflect, and that stepping back is actually part of stepping forward and continuing, you know. So I would just, you know, say it as both a word of caution and an encouragement to everybody that yes, we should strive to do our utmost to do everything that we can to be equitable and just in our work, and in our personal lives, and in our societal interactions, and that it's okay to go through phases of intensity and calmness as well, you know. And that's not directed at anything. It's just sort of a specific statement, you know. So anyway, but I am curious just to see how people create those balances in their life. That was just as a way of saying, you know, how do we create a healthy balance to prevent burnout and so forth.
Thank you so much, Jack. And I think mentioning the opportunity to reflect is so important, because that's what we're doing here today. And just sort of as an agenda item, while we're making connections here and listening to the work you are doing and finding opportunities to work together, think of us at the Berkley Center, at Georgetown, as conveners, as people who can help feature your work on our website, as people who can make connections. So, you know, if any of you want to connect, get specific service projects out, have your work featured, just let us know. Because moving it forward and getting publicity and lifting up work that often isn't in the public eye is something we care very much about and is very important. So with that said, we'd love to open it up and hear from you in the room, especially maybe we can start with some of the student leaders who are here hearing about the work that you're doing. So if you want to speak, raise your hand. We've got a mic going around, and introduce yourself, your name, and whether you're a Georgetown student or if you're from the community. Thank you. No student, oh, there we go.
Hi, my name is Gabi Rubin, and I'm the Vice President of Community Service and Social Action for the Jewish Student Association here at Georgetown. And I started my time at Georgetown with the FOSI pre-orientation program, which is a week where about 50 different students of all backgrounds, faith, non-faith, spiritual, non-spiritual, that came together to do service projects in DC as kind of a welcome to Georgetown, welcome to DC, here's how you can get involved with the Center for Social Justice. And that kind of has defined part of my Georgetown experience, is that having events of all backgrounds, faith, non-faith, spiritual, non-spiritual, that came together to do service projects in DC as kind of a welcome to Georgetown, welcome to DC, here's how you can get involved with the Center for Social Justice. And that kind of has defined part of my Georgetown experience, is that having those people as the first friends I had at Georgetown were people who were socially active and socially minded. Right now, one of the things that the JSA is doing that I think is really great is that we've partnered with a bunch of different faith groups that really have been coordinated by the Orthodox Christian Fellowship. We call them OCF. And we do interfaith sandwich making every Tuesday night at 6:45. And we make about 250 sandwiches a week for the Georgetown Ministry Group, which is down, for people who don't know, right a little bit farther down Wisconsin from Wisconsin and M intersection. And they service the Georgetown homeless community. And what's really interesting about Georgetown is we talk about it almost jokingly as the bubble, and people sometimes don't leave the bubble. But just because people don't leave the bubble doesn't mean problems don't enter the bubble. And so that just because Georgetown is a very affluent community and that we're very lucky to go to a school and be in an area like Georgetown, the university in Georgetown, the community, doesn't mean that right around the corner or even on the corner there isn't somebody who needs help. And so that's something we've been doing this year, that the OCF guys came up to us and said, hey, you want to partner with us? You want to do this? And we said, yeah, absolutely, because we had been talking about doing the same thing. And while it's great for groups to think of it and do it individually, it's even better and more effective when they come together. So now it's groups like JSA, MSA, Knights of Columbus, Orthodox Christian Fellowship, as well as groups like APO, which is a service fraternity on campus. So we've even expanded past faith groups, although the focus is still an interfaith thing, which I think is really cool.
Wait, Gabby, how do you fund that?
So we ask for $5 donations for people when they come to give, which kind of covers the costs. You know, for the most part, it's out of budget and out of pocket. So we just transferred as the JSA from being a student activities commission group to a Georgetown campus ministry group. So we build into our budget travel expenses and funding for buying the supplies for sandwiches. And OCF does as well. And other groups, and I can't speak to their budgets, but I know that other groups help out too. It's not, obviously, the only thing that we're able to give in that way is the food donations itself, because the money goes right back into buying more supplies for the next week.
Hey everyone, I'm Lisa Panucci. I work in campus ministry. I can tag team on what Gabby was talking about just to answer your question, Gretchen. So basically the idea behind that project and what the Orthodox Christian Fellowship came up with is this idea that it should be a sustained project, and that the concept behind how much does an actual meal cost you? And so we have our Georgetown students going to Leo's, going to all of these places to get food, and sometimes they don't use their meal plans, and they'll go on M Street and grab a quick lunch or a dinner. How much does that actually cost? And so even they're thinking about salads at Sweet Green costs about $10 each. So how much are you contributing out of your own pocket for those meals, and how much can we be giving back at the same time? So the idea behind the service project is that it should be everyone who comes to participate donates about $5 that go towards the supplies that fund the entire event. So it should be the group that comes in contributes enough to cover the entire expense for the 250 sandwiches each week, so that every time you bring in a new person, you're bringing in a new face, and you're donating what you would have spent otherwise on one meal in the local DC area, not even for that matter. So if that's helpful.
First, I would just like to say thank you for having me come here, because this is I've never been to the Berkley Center, and this is wonderful. So my name's Pallavi Tadapudi. I am a freshman at Georgetown. And this past semester, I was elected as the community service chair for the Hindu Student Association at Georgetown. So one of the main things that compelled me to come to Georgetown was when I was a senior in high school. I had come to visit one of my friends here, and that weekend happened to be the MSA-HSA dialogue, so the dialogue between the Hindu Student Association and the Muslim Student Association. And I didn't even know that that event was happening that weekend, and when I attended it, there must have been like 40 or 50 people, and I had always loved interfaith dialogue, and I didn't realize how prominent it would be on campus, and that shocked me, because I know that other colleges definitely, it's not as open with this type of discussion. So that definitely interested me. And I also did foci, which was a great segue into Georgetown, making those types of relationships right off the bat, and realizing that being in DC, that there is a possibility to actually bring about or like be active with whatever social justice goals you want to do. So when I got involved with HSA, it was really great. I know that especially this year, compared to previous years, HSA has grown a lot, and we have like weekly pujas or services every Sunday. And this year especially, I can't speak for previous years, but there are a lot of non-Hindus who come weekly, and the interest has grown just past the Hindu community, which is really great because the discussions are very open-ended, and Hinduism is a very open religion and very accepting. So a lot of it is like people of other faiths can relate very easily. And so in terms of service, there's a group called Knit for the Needy, which meets every Wednesday, and this one girl started it. It was a really great idea. She has like materials for knitting, and she knows how to knit, and whoever comes in, anyone can come, and she will teach them how to knit, and then you knit scarves, and mostly scarves, and then she'll deliver them to the homeless, normally in the wintertime, but it's a really great because it's always open to whoever wants to come. So we have done one event where HSA members have come and helped her out with that. And another one, by the end of the semester, what our goal is there are 3 other organizations that we're hoping to work with. One is called Friday Foods, which is similar to the sandwich making. Friday, from I think like 5 o'clock, everyone meets and you make sandwiches, and then you go take the free Guts bus down to DuPont, and like you eat your meal with any members in the community. And that is a really great event. And it's on Friday, and like the free Guts bus, everything just works out really well with that. So I'm hoping to do an event with HSA and Friday Foods. Also, there's a group called Toya Saxa, which was started, I think, 1 or 2 years ago. And this girl named Sonia, she started this organization where you decorate and stitch these little teddy bears, and then she sends it to an orphanage in Pakistan. And so that is a really great idea and really simple that we also hope to pair up with. And the last one was, as Lisa said about the extra meals. In our dining hall, everyone always has extra meals because like normally we have like a 10-block meal plan or a 14-block meal plan, and everyone always has extra. And I know that there's a group there's a lot of advertising that says if you have extra meals on Fridays, just tell the cashier and then give your meals to the homeless, like donate your meals. And that's a really simple way because a lot of ours goes to waste anyways. So we hope to combine with that too. But hopefully we can pair up with the Berkley Center more and do more events in the future. So thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Minister Wendy Hamilton, and I am a chaplain in residence here at Georgetown University. I'm part of campus ministry. We have chaplains in residence, which means we, as chaplains, we provide spiritual and emotional support to students. We live in each of the residence halls on campus, as well as graduate housing, and we're there, kind of the grassroots, hands-on support and assistance to the students from a spiritual perspective. We also have Jesuits in residence, so chaplain in residence, Jesuits in residence, and we're interfaith. We have everyone. We have Muslim, we have LDS, we have whoever I'm leaving out, Protestant. I'm Protestant, non-denominational, but I am a part of that team, and I love it, and it's wonderful. I just wanted to make a couple of comments, if that's okay. The first one I was thinking about when you mentioned about taking time for reflection so as not to feel burnt out, and how critical that is. And I think that one of the ways, at least one of the ways that has worked for me in terms of taking a moment to just make sure that I'm replenished and refreshed, because you can't serve if your reservoir is empty. So I have incorporated times for personal, meditation and prayer and just reflective time. But I've also chosen to approach service from the standpoint of, even though we may come at this like, I want to save everybody, I want to save the world, I want to, get water to Haiti, and I want to do, all of these things. We are only one person. And many of us, though we have a strong care about many things, there may be one or two that you are just really very passionate about. And it may be that you focus your energies on that one, those one or two areas, because essentially changing one does change the world. And if you can look at it from the perspective of, I may not be able to reach all of the children I want to reach, but I know I made a difference in this child's heart. We don't know necessarily what that is going to turn into. And since as people of faith, we've come to understand the outcome is not up to us, essentially, we can know that we're just a part of that bigger outcome, whatever that might be. And so I've chosen to take on service from that perspective, and it's been very helpful for me. So I just wanted to share that. The second thing, and this is just something I've been struggling with a little bit recently, and really based on an experience. As a chaplain in residence, we're part-time in our work, so many of us still have full-time jobs during the day. A lot of what we do is in the evenings or on the weekends with students because they're in classes during the day. So with education being my background, I have been serving here recently as a substitute teacher in the DC public school system. Pray for me. And the students. No, it's been a wonderful experience. It's something I actually did prior to going to seminary at Howard University. I graduated from Howard undergrad and did some substitute teaching when I first got out of school. But I've come back into the school system here some 20 years later, and it's very different. The kids are very different. The experiences that they're having are very different. And I had an experience yesterday with a family that made me really start to reflect last night, because I was thinking about and listening to all of the great things that we do here. And please, I'm not singling any one person or anyone out. This is just, I hope you hear my heart on this. Sometimes those of us who are in service or want to do service things make assumptions about what needs there are without necessarily going in and saying, what is it that you all need? Of course, we want to bring, like for instance, in the schools, we want to get more books and we want to get, more resources to them, and that is all very important. But if you have a student like I had that confronted me yesterday, that's 10 years old, that is so angry that she wanted to take my head off in the middle of the classroom and called her parent to come up to the school to assault me because of this anger, that I'm looking at her 10-year-old face and wondering what can be going on with you, that at 10 years old, you're this angry. What I came to realize is it doesn't matter how many books I give her. It doesn't matter how many resources are there for her. If someone is not tapping into that deeper need or finding a way to do that, I don't know how much the other service is going to be able to provide for them. So from a holistic standpoint, it's my hope, and maybe some of you all have some examples around here of what you might be doing or what you think we can do, particularly as people of faith who are knowledgeable about the holistic existence and what all of that means. I'd love to hear it, because as fearful kind of as I felt yesterday in that instance, I was also overwhelmed with compassion. And I thought to myself, how can I, as a person of faith, how can we go and meet the very real social needs, if you will, spiritual needs that are universal for some of these children, or just some of the folks we're trying to provide service to. So that's my only thing, is that we need to make sure when we're offering our services that we're not offering it from a place of what we assume they need, but that we're including them in the dialogue.
Thank you so much, Chaplain Wendy. Very powerful, and I hope we'll all consider that. I would love to continue this conversation so much longer, but I want to be respectful of your time, so feel free to sneak out. I guess we'll wind up in the next few minutes. But it is very much the beginning of the conversation. We're here for you as a resource, the Berkley Center, these wonderful people around the room. I can help with contact info if you're interested in connecting. And I'd like to see if Jack wants to say any few closing words.
No, I think that's it. I mean, I see that most of the students are leaving.
I think they're about to go.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that just the fact that we have these great people around here, everybody is working on different fronts, but they're also very complementary activities. One of the things that we didn't really get into too deeply, but I know was sort of brought up, was, how can Georgetown students be engaged in the wider DC area? And actually, I think that just hearing about what the restaurant effort that you were referring to, Lisa, and what you're talking about, Rebecca, are actually very connected. That if you are going out, even on sort of a leisure activity like going out to dinner, you can bring that social justice perspective to you and ask your server, ask to speak to the manager, more importantly, you know, we loved eating here, we love your food, we live right here in the neighborhood, we want to come back and patron your business. Do you provide paid sick days for your employees? Because I would love to come back here and eat here, and I want to know that my food is safe, and I want to know that the people that are serving my food are respected. So it's an interesting thing, right? Because even when we're like we're taking time off, we can still bring that perspective with us in a way that's not combative. You know, it's not an us versus them thing. Management in that case is not an enemy or anything. You're legitimately concerned. You're having compassion for the person that is serving you. You know, so I think that as we move in our communities, we have that opportunity, and you know, working with our public schools like Joi's doing. Working with youth locally like Sana's doing, serving the elderly and these other types of issues like the LDS community is doing. You know, all of these things are ways in which either probably through partnering specific student groups or as individuals we can engage not just in Georgetown as the university on campus or in the neighborhood, but work more broadly in the community as well. And it's all good.
That's a perfect way to end. And just one final note, the White House is interested in all this work going on. This is largely what this is part of, the White House Interfaith and Community Service Campus Challenge. Chase actually works in the White House. Not through that, but through a different office, but interesting side note. So, you know, there's going to be a fall event that brings together all the different schools and communities in DC that are working on this. Over 400 schools in the country are working on this. So this work does get to their attention. There's a report, we'll be reporting on this event, there's video. So there will be many, many more opportunities to connect and serve over the summer. Let's keep talking, let's plan for the coming school year and beyond. So thank you so much, all of you, for your work. You're incredibly inspiring. Let's give a hand to our guests and to all of you for all the work you're doing. Thank you so much.